Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Dale E. Walsh. He's a poet, he's a mental health advocate, mentor, coach for the families of those diagnosed with schizophrenia. He's been coaching these families for 3 years and is the creator of the Life Love method to help his clients. Is guided by the mantra recovery is always an option. Welcome to the show, Ted.
Thank you very much, AJ. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Dale. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can overcome schizophrenia, breaking stigma, and how one can find hope. In this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But first, Dale, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, about your understanding of this so that people know who they are listening to. If I understand, you are not a doctor, you do not have any particular certification. So tell us so that why should listeners listen to you? What is the background that you have that they should understand? Okay, this is the right person we are listening to.
Okay. Well, basically, AJ, a lot of times I start off with a poem. As it says, I'm a poet, and I've written a lot of poems about my mental health experience and everything. But this is what I call my introductory poem, and it goes, Dale reviewing what actually happened, and it goes like this. Hi, I'm God was the joke I made after Killer Dartmouth toke of some primo Ivy League smoke, which apparently caused me to croak, because in mental hospital I awoke with Rumi Gabriel, the main bloke who did my delusions angelically stroke, while the doctor claimed my brain broke the moment divine gag I spoke, testifying I was only big quack, which clinicians diagnosed a psychotic attack, preventing me from getting sanity back until I came to Teaneck Hackensack to pursue resident therapy program track and deal with my evident lack of reason among psychiatric patient back who never gave me any slack. Under interrogation, the story in crack.
Wonderful, wonderful. What does exactly you want to say through this day?
So basically, I was at Dartmouth College in 1975, and I came up with what I thought was a great joke, which was, Hi, I'm God. And I was taken away, hospitalized, and I was hospitalized for 13 weeks, given a diagnosis of schizophrenia, which I have overcome after through 50 years of like hard work and recovery. I was in a private psychiatric program for 5 years. I went back to college. I graduated with honors from a major university in the United States, and so I became a tutor. I've been an entrepreneur basically for 40 years, and ultimately I'm now a mentor for the family caregivers of those with schizophrenia, because I feel that the family members are what I call the forgotten victims of mental illness, because the patients, the people who are diagnosed, usually have a team or at least a doctor to help them, but mental illness affects everybody in the family and everybody that comes into contact with it, and ultimately just feel, I feel it's my mission to help the people who are daily facing the challenges of caregiving for a loved one with a serious mental illness to overcome their challenges and to maintain and reclaim their own integrity of self.
Right, Dale. How would you put your own journey through this whole recovery? How would you want to tell for people who have only heard this word? Even I've only heard this word. I've never Googled it in that sense. But I just want to understand, how should they understand from a common person's perspective, and you, someone who has seen it from very close, what is this schizophrenia all about? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it even correctly.
Okay, well, schizophrenia is a serious mental illness. So it's typified by hallucinations and delusions. Basically, those are the two major symptoms. And so I never hallucinate. I mean, most schizophrenics hallucinate, but I never had hallucinated. I just had like my God delusion, and it's played out in many different ways. But basically, I break it down into like three periods of my delusions. First was when I was Dale, and Dale basically was suffering from agnosignosia, and this is a common symptom of schizophrenia. It means that it's taken from neurology. It means the person is unable to comprehend that there's anything wrong with his brain, with his or her brain. So that ended after 9, 10 years. I had like an experience that basically killed Dale. I called it the death of Dale. And then I became Dewey. I mean, I always said that I had five personalities: Dale, Dewey, Do, Duck, and Genius. So then I became Dewey, and Dewey spent 33 years in Hackensack, which is where I came after my initial hospital. I spent 33 years in Hackensack, basically just living life and understanding the illness and getting better. And now I am DW, which is my initials, and so Do is like sort of like the grandfather of my personalities, and he's the most stable personality I've ever been, without delusions. And so the three stages of my development of my delusion have been very distinctive, and actually schizophrenia itself, by definition, means shattered mind. And a lot of people with schizophrenia have like what's called disorganized thought. They become like very, apathetic in affect and everything. And but the two symptoms or actually the major symptom that I've dealt with is delusions.
Right, right. So help us understand your uh, journey, because then doctors do not have any other options. That's why, they try to do the best. They want them to, either in terms of hospitalization, in terms of providing care, cure if possible. Uh, what are the options for patients here? And you talk about stigma here. Where does the stigma come? Isn't this like any other issue? I want to get your perspective as someone who has seen it from close.
Well, I don't know what the state of mental health is in India, AJ, but in America, there is like a very big stigma against people with schizophrenia and with serious mental illness. I mean, uh, not only are a lot of people with who are diagnosed in jail are homeless, but there's also like just like a lack of funds to help them. And the situation is exacerbated by the fact that I should say, I was very fortunate that I got into a program that was basically unique, where the doctor saw me 3 times a week. We had like group therapy twice a week. So I was like, and the base foundation of my recovery is the medication. And I was very lucky to find a good medication for me, an antipsychotic medication, which is a very powerful medication. But it works for me because I have the brain imbalance of the illness. And the medical model about schizophrenia says it's chemical imbalance in the brain. Basically, you have too much dopamine in your brain, and your brain just like keeps. Dopamine is like the thing that the pleasure, chemical in your brain, and so schizophrenics have too much dopamine. So that means that their brain just keeps firing, and it's sort of like I mean, I'm sure you probably aren't familiar with this, but to give you an analogy, it's like taking, without medication, it's like I'm taking a dose of LSD every 5 hours, and the brain just like goes nuts. It goes out of control, and so people become, they talk in what's called word salad, where they're just like talking nonsense. They're just putting words together to hear themselves talk. There's disorganized thinking where they can't keep, a coherent sentence going, and all sorts of symptoms. But as I said, the situation is exacerbated by the fact that um, there just aren't enough psychiatrists to deal with the exploding population of people with schizophrenia. So, and the doctors who do work with schizophrenics are so overworked that many of them suffer burnout.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dale. So I want to understand, what is it that you want people to understand from your own journey and story?
Uh, I guess fundamentally, basically, I just want people to say, if someone is like talking loudly at a bus stop, for instance, this often happens. They say, they shun people. They say, they're scared of people. And what my goal is to break the stigma of serious mental illness, so that rather than being scared, people will be concerned and be willing to help people who are in need, rather than just like shun them. And the stigma goes, the stigma has like two levels. One is the social stigma, which is reinforced by Hollywood and the perception of the portrayal of serious mental illness in the media. Every time there's a mass shooter in America, the first question is, did he have a diagnosis? It's not even did he have a diagnosis, it's what is his diagnosis. So, that prejudice against mental illness is very prevalent. And secondly, what's even more difficult is something that I dealt with for 35 years, which is the self stigma, and just like the guilt and the shame people have for having a diagnosis, for having a mental illness in the first place.
Right, right. And in terms of the uh, the issues faced by the clients or the parents or whoever it is, the families of such people who are suffering from this particular issue, how would you like people to understand their issues, their suffering? What would you like to tell families of those? You are a mentor for this, a coach for such families.
Well, I have like a couple of messages. One is, you know, schizophrenia isn't a 2-week cold. It's a lifelong chronic illness. And but even like with a physical illness, people can like usually like cope with the symptomology and everything, and help people. I mean, if someone's confined to a wheelchair that are unable to feed themselves, then you can do that pretty easily. But because mental illness is not it's of the mind, then you have like a whole other plethora of issues coming up, where the person is unable to have successful social interactions. And so therefore what I try to do, and my mentoring, is to not only help people, not help only help family members, like face and talk about the things they're going through, but also it's a couple of other things is just help them to reclaim their own integrity instead of getting codependent on their loved ones, because that's something that's very easy to fall into. If you got like a loved one who is going psychotic 3 times a year, then your caregiving is going to be very much affected by the interactions that you have. So therefore, and you can become very easily codependent and just like totally devote yourself to that one child or something. And especially in a dynamic where there's a larger family, and a husband and everything, then it can be very tricky because the other children will get very jealous of the one who's sick. And so basically, I just help people understand not only the symptomology and the illness itself, but also how to communicate with their loved ones. And also, but most, the core of my mentoring is to help the people reclaim their own self integrity so that they can have the fortitude and the insight to be able to see where they need to improve and how they can best help themselves. Because if someone gets sick helping caregiving a loved one who's sick, then they aren't going to be able to really help their loved one.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Dale. So tell us a bit about, you have written 5,000 poems, if I understand. Now, that is not a small thing to do. It's a huge achievement, and I want to understand then, how have you been able to do this? And why should I call you that you have a issue in anything? Means if even if there was anything, means I see that 5,000 poems shows that you have got a lot of, understanding of everything.
Well, I should say also, I started writing poems once I graduated from college, AJ. Actually, I wrote 6 novels before I graduated from college. So, but the bottom line of that is medication. Uh, once I stopped fight, it took me basically 15 years to stop fighting my medication and to see that I needed it. And so, I've been on my own, and then, this is sort of extraordinary for the schizophrenia great achievement. In the first place, is I've been in my own apartment for 42 years, and most schizophrenics can't even look after themselves, and can't like keep an apartment because of their symptomology. But I was very fortunate, as I said, I was very fortunate to find a program and to get the type of help that's extraordinary, where I had like the therapy in such doses that I was able to sort of like come to terms with the illness. And that's one thing I feel very fortunate about, but it's also why I am pursuing this calling, is because I feel that I can be a spokesperson for people not only about schizophrenia, but with schizophrenia, who are unable to speak for themselves. And as for the poetry, um, it's just like daily production. I mean, I graduated from college. I turned my focus to poetry, and I've been writing poetry since 1985. And I write, on actually I've been writing a poem a day since 1/1/23. So that I in the last 2 years I've written 1,000 poems. But ultimately the poetry, the production just came from being conscientious as an artist and writing as much as I could.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one thing I want to understand, for people who are having any sort of a mental problem, illness, that medically that they look at it, that or for the parents or family members of such people, what is the best way to get the best out of the caregivers or the people who are treating them, doctors or any other part of the medical fraternity? What's the best way to help them to get their help?
To make them realize that they need help in the first place. That's the bottom line.
Can you tell a bit more about this?
Oh, so there's a great book by this doctor named Dr. Amador, Dr. Javier Xavier Amador, and his brother was a schizophrenic, and so he wrote a book called "I'm Not Sick and I Don't Need Help," and it's about this symptom called agnosia, which I mentioned, which is taken from neurology, where a person is unable to comprehend there's anything wrong with him. And so that's a big barrier because if you don't think there's anything wrong with you, then you're not going to take medication that makes you feel terrible, and that happens a lot. And also you're not going to see a therapist or a doctor because you don't think you need to. So and this book is very valuable in helping people to learn how to communicate with their loved ones, so that their loved ones, even if they are in agnosia, will at least start to work with their family members to to address their problems. So ultimately, I just think that self-awareness is the real key to recovery, and to be able to say for the person who's affected, to be able to say, I need help and I want help. And that's why the motto of my company is recovery is always an option, because it's not a given, it's an option, and the person has to want to be able to get better and realize in the first place that he needs to get better.
Absolutely, absolutely well explained. That you have created the live love method. What is this method, Dale?
So that's a program that basically I feel God gave me, but it's so it's a 8-step method that I think has general application for therapy and even medical things. But it's basically it's an anagram. It stands for learn, integrate, validate, explore, and listen, observe, value, and express. So that's basically I do a 3-month program that I take people through, and then there's a 9th session at the end just for summarize and everything. But it's an 8-step method, and what it is just explore, help the client explore, where they're coming from, where they see where their faults as a caregiver is, where they can improve in their communications. But also it's a self-transformational journey that I take people through, because it's about them as much as it is about their loved one.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's much to learn about all these things from you, and also about people. So for people who are who want to learn more from you, about you, want to read your poems, want to get your help in terms of know about your life love method, what's the best way for them to connect with you, Dale?
Well, I have a website. It's www. DEW, that's my initials, DW, LIVELOVE, LIVELOVE.net. And if people are interested in my poetry, I have 5 collections on Amazon that they can find under the author D.E. Walsh.
Wonderful, wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you very much, AJ. I really enjoyed this. Thank you very much.